Good morning, folks. Good morning, everybody. Can you, there you go. Thank you very much. For the purpose of today, you're going to be 8th graders. And the introduction sort of spilled the beans, so you need to forget everything that you know.
God, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, most people already know it anyways. And I should clarify, I am not, it was Sean, correct?
Yeah.
I am not a historian, although I teach history. It's interesting that I ended up falling in love with history because my history teachers convinced me that I hated it. And so when I became a history teacher, I said I'm not going to teach the way I was taught. So a little bit of background before I begin, that I would not be presenting to my 8th graders, at least at this unit. I don't teach the way I was taught, which was to memorize a narrative, names and dates. They convinced me I hated history. What I did do is teach kids the purpose of dates. And in U.S. history, straight out the gate, I'd put all I think it was 12 dates for the entire year on the board. And I said there's going to be 2 for every test. Just learn these 12, that's it. And the only purpose of these dates is to create within your mind a bookshelf. So if you learn these dates anytime for the rest of your life that you hear a date, you'll say that's just before the Louisiana Purchase, or that was just after the Mexican-American War. Then for the rest of your life, just learning these dates, all the dates for the rest of your life make sense to you. What is history? It's not an endless list of names and dates. I read somewhere, I have not been able to track this quote down, but he said it's a chronicle of moral choices made and not made. And that's definitely true for today. It's also about enduring issues, the issues that never go away. And so let's look at how they tried to deal with the issues before, so perhaps we can deal with them better today. And in the United States, that might be state versus federal, tyranny of the majority versus tyranny of the minority, expanding democracy and all the attempts to diminish that, including today. Liberal versus conservative, the Federal Reserve. Spreading democracy internationally versus imperialism. Narratives used to begin wars. A nation of immigrants. What does that mean for us today? Open market versus tariffs. Laissez-faire versus mixed economy. Capital versus labor. The fragility of democracy and the responsibilities of a citizen in a democracy. These are the things that make history interesting. At least they made it interesting for me. When we're talking about moral choices and enduring issues, then you've got my attention. We're in the midst of, as you know, revisionist history. With the current regime trying to whitewash all of history, you know that slavery was benign and the slaves were quite content. And then on top of that, we were really nice to the Native Americans. And the purpose of history in school is to make students proud to be Americans. And anything that doesn't do that, we sort of eliminate. That was the history, by the way, that I was taught. But the left, that's the sort of the right attempt to revise history, but the left has been at it as well. I'll give you an example of what occurred in San Francisco. San Francisco, the school board decided that they had to change Abraham Lincoln High School because Abraham Lincoln was a racist. And the reason being that he authorized the largest mass execution in U.S. history, which is true, hanging 38 Dakota Native Americans following the U.S.-Dakota War of 1862. Oh my God, get rid of them. But they don't give the whole story. After the war, the Army wanted to put 303 Native Americans to death. And this is in the middle of the Civil War, where Abraham Lincoln cannot offend his generals. And so he sort of personally reviewed the records and commuted the sentences of 264. He saved the lives of 264 Native Americans, but had to give the generals a bone. And for this, they were going to remove his name from the school. Another thing that sort of burns my butt, we need to tear down all monuments to any Confederates, including even Robert E. Lee, who, by the way, stated categorically that slavery was a moral and political evil. It goes down in history of a man of immense integrity. After the war, everybody wanted to use his name to sell anything, and he said the Lee name is not for sale at any price. He earned the respect of all the soldiers on both sides, but because he fought for the Confederacy, we need to tear down his thing and remove him from history. And I just say, okay, let's do that then. Let's tear down the Washington Monument. Let's tear down the Madison, the father of our Constitution. Let's take down the Jefferson Monument, because they were all slaveholders. You can see how absurd that becomes. And what's behind all this? Because we want to simplify history and say slavery was just a few bunch of slaveholders, an oligarchy in the South, and we defeated them in the Civil War, and yay, we are justified as a nation. And this is the way we try not to face the fact we were a slave nation, and the North was knee-deep in the profits of slavery. And we just want to deny all of that and simplify history, and that serves no one. And the other thing, and this unit I'm going to show you touches on, it's called perverse presentism, where we judge the past on the culture and values of today, which is never fair. And beware, because we will be judged the same way by the values and the cultures in the future. Some of the things that guided me in developing this unit: a strong focus on reading and primary source documents. In this case, Howard's own writing, so that my 8th graders were reading his words. Bloom's taxonomy, how many have heard of that? It's sort of spiraling up. There are many different types of knowledge. It goes from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And you never want to just say, memorize this for the test, spit it back out and forget it. That's the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy, sort of not worth the time. So you're going to see me touch on 2 things where they're going to be forced to apply what we learned and then evaluate what they've learned, and even better, do it together. Force students to confront their assumptions and their preconceptions, to rethink and to accept complexity in a way that we're doing everything to do away with that today. Keep it student-centered. Kids doing most of the talking, and as a ham like me, that was hard. It took me many years to learn, shut up, Dave. Create a classroom where the classroom is a stage for the students and not for you. That was tough. The approach I'm going to be using today is something called jigsaw, where you divide the knowledge into pieces. And the kids each get one piece working together with partners. And then they teach each other the other pieces to the puzzle. And then once the pieces are together, that they've put together without you, then you can apply them and evaluate it. And as usual, you want to begin every unit with a purpose, a goal. Instead of just memorize this and spit it back on the test, there's a question that we want to answer. And the first question is, what makes a national hero? And then, was the person in question, General Howard, a hero or not? And so I'm going to involve you quickly, and so we'll start talking about a national hero. What do you think should be the qualities of a national hero? You can just stand and shout it out. Anyone, one quality of a national hero.
Integrity.
Integrity. And why do you say that very loudly?
Because I'm missing it so much.
I said, why do you say that? Can someone help her out?
Because it's lacking in our politicians today.
It's lacking in our politicians today.
It's the only thing a person has to make them a real person.
It's the only thing a person has to make him or her a real person. All right, we'll move on. Give me another one. Integrity. What else? If you're going to be a national hero, you should, yes.
Knowledge.
Say it.
Trust.
Trust. Well, that's sort of similar to here. Explain what you mean.
To be able to believe that the leader has integrity and that you can trust him, that what he says will be the truth.
The person should be someone that you can trust to speak the truth. Yes?
Courage.
Courage. Why do you say that?
Every hero needs courage.
Because?
Every hero needs courage.
Because we can help each other out. Why does every hero need courage? Say
It
it.
takes courage to defend what you believe.
It takes courage to defend what you believe, which might lead to a quick discussion about how difficult it is in modern times to stand up and be the only one. Say it again. Morality. And why do you say that? Say it again.
I think it speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself. Can someone speak for it?
Has to have a system of values.
A system of values that guide your life, which then begs the question, are my values the same as your values? But you can see how my forcing you to explain your choices leads into all sorts of interesting discussions all by themselves. One more and then we'll call it quits.
They need to be
Yes.
well known.
You have to be famous. Because there are a lot of people who have all of
They
this
have all those things.
and never get known. And then there was one more in the back.
Fairness. Fairness. Fairness.
Fairness.
Compassion.
Yeah, compassion, yeah.
Fairness and compassion. Ruthless compassion. Well, let's move on. That would be an interesting discussion. What do you mean by ruthless compassion? So here's the man of the day, of the hour. His name is General O. Oliver Otis Howard. Oliver Otis Howard. And so this is where the jigsaw begins. And this is a cooperative unit jigsaw. And just to let you know, cooperative unit teaching is much harder than just lecturing. It always involves a hell of a lot more work. Because you don't just, meet with someone and start talking. And I'll call that cooperative learning. For me, I couldn't even touch it until I was 3 or 4 weeks into the first semester, and I knew the kids well. I've given a few quizzes or a test or so, and I can sort of start them at the top with the kids that are clearly A down to the kids that are struggling. And I put them all here, and then I'd say, okay, I pair them up very carefully for partner work, with great care. All right, and then after I'd made the partners, then I'd say, all right, when I move them into teams of 4, who can I put together where I think that's going to be a good match? And I don't want to get all girls together or all the Latino kids together. I want to mix and match it all. So to do one classroom, to set that up, and then to completely rearrange the seating chart so that they're next to the partners, and then when I say move into teams, they get into the partners that I want them to work with. That takes many hours just for one class. So you can see why many teachers either they just throw them into teams and then they don't know why it doesn't work, or they just stick to lecture because they aren't willing to do the work. All right, so now I put them into teams and we're going to look at 4 pieces of the puzzle of General Howard. Now, you aren't going to do it today, so that's a shame. But I would start them in partner pairs where they would each get, we're going to look at 4 different areas of General Howard. One is going to be his service in the Civil War. The other is going to be his work with the, Apache. After the, oops, wrong order. His work with the Freedmen's Bureau. Then the Apache. And then his writing. So we're going to look, each of you would become, with your partner, an expert on each of these. So I'd give each of you a handout. The first part is something that I wrote up, a short summary, followed by a selection from one of his writings that deals with that area. So you're getting a summary and you're reading a primary source document with a partner. Now, change that into bullet notes that you're going to use to teach. And no one's going to want to have you sharing lots of notes So make sure they're short and sweet. Otherwise, you will be hated as a teacher. And I just got to tell you, I don't like it, so don't do it. All right? So they meet with their partners first, and they create their note. They read through it, and they take their notes. Then you stand up, and all the experts on the U.S. Civil War meet in that corner. All the experts on Freedmen's Bureau meet in that corner. You sit down with someone else who is also preparing to be a teacher. Put your notes together and make them better. Steal from each other. Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, let me add that. Oh, that's too long. Do that 2 or 3 times. Then you go back and meet with your original partner. Compare what you've changed. And by the time this is done, all of you probably have some pretty damn good notes to go. All right. Then the first time you begin to teach, you go with your partner, meet in a team of 4, and you teach. You take turns teaching each other, asking questions, and you have to tell them you aren't allowed just to share the notes. It's always you tell the story, and then you ask questions about the story, and only when you're convinced that they can answer your questions are you allowed to share the notes. They have to demonstrate understanding before you can share the notes. And then they share the notes. And then the next time, now what usually happens the first time they're in partners, the more confident one does most of the teaching. Which is fine, because the other shy one gets to watch how it's done. And then the next time, now it's just go find someone who has an area that you don't have, get together, and now you have to teach by yourself. Make sense? Yes. All right, and then when it's all done, then I'll debrief. Now I'm just going to do, in a straight lecture form, I apologize, just what they have just done in teams of students. So let me tell you about General Howard. He attended the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, graduating 4th out of 46. He later taught mathematics there and eventually served as its superintendent. West Point, remember that. That's going to be important later. He was, yes, sir?
What year did he graduate?
I don't know.
Was it pre-Mexican-American War?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And that I'm going to touch on later as well.
Okay.
You'll see. But it was pre-Mexican-American War. Spoiler alert, many of his friends there, he fought with in the Mexican-American War and then against in the Civil War. But hold that thought, because that's big. He was known as the Christian general. He was very religious, and very often that nickname was spoken with a little bit of disdain. It was like, oh, he's the Christian general. He did not believe in any profanity or any drinking, and as one of his colleagues said, I could never trust a combat officer who does not drink. For Howard, his unwavering faith in God created courage and bravery under fire that others would hazard to say bordered on the absurd. All right? He started out as a Civil War brigadier general, eventually promoted to major general in the Army of the Potomac. He lost his right arm in the Battle of Fair Oaks, also known as Seven Pines, and earned the Medal of Honor. There were some times where what he accomplished was questioned, and especially at the Battle of Chancellorsville and Gettysburg, he was accused of incompetence, and they used to, some of his detractors, his name is Oliver Otis Howard, they referred to him as Howard. But nonetheless, at the end, General Sherman was impressed enough to put him in command of the entire Army of the Tennessee, was one whole flank of his, as they marched across Georgia in the famous March to the Sea. So he kept moving his way up. All right? So put that in the back. Is this evidence that he is a national hero?
No. No, I would say yes.
How many say yes? How many say no? Let's hear from a yes.
Instead of famous, I think it's having participated in actions consequential to the United States.
So you would almost actually add something here, in one way, made a difference.
Yeah. And by making a difference, you can become famous. You might not start out that way.
Got it. All right, now, someone who says, no, that is not evidence that he's a national hero. Not evidence. Yes.
Not yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't done enough.
Ah, hasn't done enough. Man, you're a tough. Yes.
It's only one of all of the things, and there's so much more to a person.
You're saying it's too early to tell.
Yeah.
Ah, well, let's move on, shall we? And now remember, that's just one piece of the puzzle that kids would have become an expert on and then taught each other. So we look at the Freedmen's Bureau. After the assassinations of Abraham Lincoln and also the end of the war, President Johnson put him in charge of the Freedmen's Bureau, which was pretty much, what do we do with these millions of now free slaves? And he pretty much ran Reconstruction, a huge responsibility. He's known for, he rushed rations to both former slaves and Southern whites, heading off mass starvation. He devised far-reaching programs and guidelines, including social welfare, schooling, courts, medical care for freed slaves. They established more than 1,000 schools for free slaves. And then he became convinced that these white, even though they were, mostly missionaries who came down to teach the slaves, he said they don't really believe that these kids can learn. And so he started a teachers college for African Americans to create African American teachers called Howard University. And he founded it. He served as its president from 1869 to 1873, and it remains one of the most prestigious African American universities in the nation. Turn to your partner. What do you think? Is this evidence that he is a hero? Turn and talk. Nah, come on, turn and talk. You can't just say yes. You have to say yes because.
Yes, because he made a big difference in people's lives.
All right, how many think he's a hero now? Any more? Oh, we've got a few more. All right, anyone want to make a comment before I move on? Going once, going twice? Yes.
He's getting closer. He's getting closer, but he hasn't fulfilled everything you need to be a true American hero.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
He's getting there. All right, but wait. There's more. Yes, sir. I can't hear you.
Can you be a national hero, but then
Excuse me for just a minute.
designation?
Say it again.
Can you be a national hero at one point in your life, but then lose that designation because of your actions afterwards?
Hold that thought. You know I'm heading somewhere with this. Okay. Next. Can I repeat that? Sorry. He said, well, it's sort of, someone once said, you can never ask if anyone has a happy life until after they're dead. Because you don't know what yet is going to happen. You may have a happy life, horrible tragedy. And so you can't really know until the end. And I think he's saying he knows, but wait, there's more. All right? And of course, I'm going to get to something where I've got the kids saying, wow, what a guy. And then I'm going to say, but we're going to throw this in. And it's not only what makes a hero, but this has been much in the news lately, what disqualifies someone as a hero. And Cesar Chavez was, until very recently, a national hero. And then now there are accusations of molesting young girls, and oh boy. And so what we're going to get somewhere where I'm going to ask you, does this disqualify him? All right, next. In the West, General Crook, a colleague, said when General Howard came out west, he said, he told me that he thought the Creator had placed him on earth to be the Moses to the Negro. Having accomplished that mission, he felt satisfied his next mission was with the Indian. So he had a real sense that everything he did was being guided by God, and that he was doing God's will. He had been chosen by God to lead first the African Americans, then the natives to the promised land. Howard's approach was unusual for the time as he tried to protect peaceful natives from settlers, but he still strongly believed in forcing tribes to live on reservations and assimilate into American society. That pretty much meant give up your nomadic ways and become Christian. In 1872, there was an ongoing 12-year war with the most feared of Apaches, Cochise. It was rumored that no white person had ever seen him and lived. And so he is sent next out to end this war. And rather than put his army together and go attack, he requested a meeting with Cochise. And everyone said, "You've lost your mind. No one has seen him and lived." And he said, "Well, I'm going to go." He went with 2 aides, all of them unarmed. General Howard went, met with Cochise, and at the end, there was a negotiated peace. Cochise said, "The white man and the Indian are to drink of the same water, eat of the same bread, and be at peace." Howard's efforts to broker peace were seen as a rare act of diplomatic rather than military action during this period of the Indian Wars. Turn and talk. What do you think? Say something. All right. Have we made it yet?
No, no, no.
Yeah, I think, given the fact that he won the Medal of Honor,
Substantially.
given the fact that he was a man of good conscience, given the fact that he tried diplomacy, he qualifies as a hero.
Hold that thought. How many agree with him? Yes, he's the national hero. But wait, there's more. And this is coming from someone. I published 4 books that no one reads. This jerk published 10. Gotta hate him. His 2-volume autobiography comprised 1,300 pages. In addition to that, he wrote My Life and Experiences Among Our Hostile Indians. He wrote Famous Indian Chiefs I Have Known. He wrote a biography of Zachary Taylor. He wrote a biography of Queen Isabella of Spain. He wrote 2 children's books, one called Donald's School Days, and another one called Henry in the War, or The Model Volunteer, a work of juvenile fiction reflecting on a soldier's life. 10 books, which certainly made it easy for me to find primary source stuff that the kids would read in each of their 4 sections. So, Civil War hero, founder of Howard University, negotiated a peaceful solution to the Apache Wars and published 10 books. Pretty amazing fellow, don't you think? Damn straight. All right, now what I love to do is to complicate things. Enter another one of my heroes, Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce. And by the way, I read, if you want to get really depressed, and I know you all are eager to do that, is get a copy, and I'm sure they have a copy here, of Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's a Native American history of the West. I had already heard of Joseph, so I began with that chapter on him. It's only about 23 pages, at the end of which I had to go for a long walk, and I was profoundly depressed for the next week. But this is a man who immediately became one of my lifelong heroes. Just an amazing man. His name means, in Native American, rolling thunder in the mountains. The Nez Perce, it's a French word meaning pierced nose. They lived in the Northwest for more than 11,500 years. So they certainly had a very good claim to the land. They were hailing from the Northern Rockies. The tribe had enjoyed positive relations with the United States since the days of Lewis and Clark. On their way across the Rockies, the Nez Perce loaned them the horses that they used to get across the Rockies to the Pacific and back. They lived in peace with the white man. In the Treaty of 1885, it established a 7.5 million acre reservation for the Nez Perce in their ancestral homeland across Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. If only that were the end of the story. And then gold was discovered on their land. And then in run the miners, followed by the ranchers, and then the government stepped in and came across with the Treaty of 1863, which is, 8 years later. It's called the Steele Treaty by the Native Americans. The U.S. government forced a new treaty, reducing the reservation by 90%, and creating a much smaller 750,000 acre reserve in Idaho, meaning you're going to be farmers. You have to give up your nomadic ways and move on to this much smaller reservation. A few of the natives signed it. They were the ones who were already farming, had become Christians. They said, sure. The majority of the Native Americans, including Chief Joseph's group, said, hell no. Hell no. And his father on his deathbed said, son, hold on to this land. Never give it up. Anyways, you can see the problem brewing. And then some settlers murdered some Native Americans. They were never put on trial. And then some of the Native Americans began to mock the family of the murdered Native Americans, saying, you coward, you've never avenged their deaths. So they went and murdered some settlers, and so we were off to the races with a war. And Chief Joseph stepped in and said, whoa, let's all calm down. No, we can avoid a war, but the Army, General Howard was, well, you already know what happens. One thing you need to know about this whole thing is that Howard said of Joseph, Joseph and I became quite good friends. And Joseph, many years later after the war, said, I used to be so anxious to meet him. I wanted to kill him in war. But before the war, they were dear friends. Now, Howard had recognized the unfairness of the situation. He had written to Washington, D.C., advocating for Chief Joseph Band to keep their ancestral lands in the Wallowa Valley, arguing that it was a mistake to take the land from them. We should really let these peaceable Indians have this poor valley for their own. So Howard was very clear. Not only is Joseph my friend, but I believe they're right, and the U.S. government is wrong, and I believe strongly enough that I'm going to write the U.S. government and tell them so. Moral dilemma time. Remember, you're 8th graders. You're General Howard. On the one hand, you were trained at West Point. On the other hand, Chief Joseph is your friend, and you believe he's right. What would you have done? You were an 8th grader. Turn and talk.
Resign.
Turn and talk. Come on. You are turning and talking. Don't make me come over there. Okay, quick vote. How many would resign? Say, I will not do this.
A very morality, he was taught to follow orders.
Yes.
On the other hand,
His orders violated his values. He should have said, okay, I can't do this, but he was forced, as Lee wanted to defend Virginia, even if he thought slavery was immoral. So he had strong moral values, where Howard may have gone, oh well, I can say this, but I'm going to go kill him anyway.
how many think he should have resigned?
Oh, yeah.
How many think duty is duty, you follow your orders? Well, you are certainly thinking like 8th graders. 8th graders are all like, it's friendship, there's nothing more value than friendship, you know, I don't understand West Point anyways, you honor your friendship. All right, so what happened, just very quickly, in 1877, Joseph and at least 800 men, women, and children led the U.S. Army under Howard on this wild goose chase through all of those states. It was a 1,170-mile month, 5-month chase. And afterwards, General Sherman said, quote, one of the most extraordinary Indian wars of which there is any record. The Indians displayed a courage and skill that elicited universal praise. They abstained from scalping. They let captive women go free. They did not commit indiscriminate murder of peaceful families and fought with almost scientific skill. You can imagine how much I admire this peaceful man. He said, I don't want war, but if it comes, by God, I'm going to fight it. Although it was his other chiefs that did most of the leading of the military stuff. In the end, this long chase, there were many accusations against Howard saying, do you really want to catch him? How is it you can't catch these 800 people? Could it be that maybe you sympathize with them? And he'd say, poppycock. But in the end, General Miles from the east cornered them, stopped them from escaping to Canada, opened up with his howitzer cannons, and that was the end. And this was one of the things that made Chief Joseph so famous, the translation of his surrender. I am tired of fighting. Our chiefs are all killed. The old men are all dead. It is cold, and we have no blankets. The little children are freezing to death. My people, some of them have run away to the hills and have no blankets, no food. No one knows where they are, perhaps freezing to death. I want to have time to look for my children and see how many of them I can find. Maybe I shall find them among the dead. Hear me, my chiefs, my heart is sick and sad. From where the sun now stands, I will fight no more forever. Both Howard and Miles had promised Joseph he could return home, but General Sherman countermanded that order and ultimately had to send them to a small Oklahoma reservation. To Howard's credit, he spent years seeking to have the Nez Perce return to their Idaho reservation. Joseph died on a reservation in Washington State, and the attending physician put cause of death, broken heart. Okay. Is he a national hero? Turn and talk. I need you. Good morning, children. Mr. Ellison has told me that you want to ask me questions about my illustrious career. I just want to say that on my way through the halls, I was appalled at the profanity that I heard spoken almost everywhere. There was no sense of decorum or morality. Anyways, are there any questions for me? Yes?
Yes, I wondered why you wear your mustache on top of your nose.
I was very surprised that intelligence wasn't, I was really surprised that intelligence wasn't mentioned because...
No, we're talking to General Howard. Question for General Howard.
For General Howard, how did you deal with the answers to very complex problems? How did you approach the positive effects, the negative effects, but mostly the intervening variables that come into decisions to know that building a wall is not going to solve
This is the kind of poppycock that, it all comes down, I prayed to God. And God guided my every decision. I asked, what would God want me to do? This is what has guided my life. And anything else, you're just going to get astray. Anything else? Another question.
General Howard, when and how did you pass away? And
I don't remember. Next question.
what was your reputation when you did?
Oh, well, I wrote 10 books. Part of that was to salvage my reputation, because whenever you're famous, people come after you. And there was all these slights about the Battle of Gettysburg and Chancellorsville that I had been incompetent, which I assure you, if you read my autobiography, you will realize that is not the case. Jealousy, I tell you.
I have a question.
General Howard.
Back here.
Yes.
Back here. Is it possible that your aide-de-camp wrote that speech that's attributed to Joseph?
Many people today, of course I'm dead, but many people consider that speech to be somewhat apocryphal, meaning maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It did say that his aide-de-camp translated it, and my guess is he probably was rather sympathetic and took some literary license.
I have a question for you. So if you have integrity, trust, courage, morality, well, you're famous, that's no big deal, fairness, compassion, why do you think it was proper to corral up all these Native Americans that own their property and steal the rest for you?
Well, a number of things. As you know, I agree with everything you said. I wrote to Washington, D.C., explaining as such. But there is a little matter that seems to have been forgotten in the modern age, and that is duty. And I went to West Point. I swore an oath to do my duty, and as a Christian, I swore an oath to do my duty to God. My duty was clear: follow my orders. As you know, when I gave orders during the Civil War, some of them very difficult orders, I didn't say pretty please. Let me finish. I didn't say if you agree. I knew my soldiers would do their duty, and if they did not, I would have them shot. And so you're asking me to make a decision that would have me shot and to betray all the values that I learned at West Point.
Well, I don't think that is a good person. You're following somebody else's orders that you know are wrong to kill people. Is that a good thing? Just to kill them because you think you have to?
So let me ask you, anytime I get an order, I should sit down and say, will I or won't I? And what kind of army would we have? Next question.
Here you are, sir.
Simple question, General. You haven't spoken about your family.
Oh, no.
I hate people like him. I love them. Any other questions? You aren't asking the one question that an 8th grader would ask. Think like an 8th grader.
My question relates to the previous question. You are a very religious person. You believe in God. One of the commandments is love thy neighbor as thyself. How can you justify your actions when you destroyed a race?
Oh, I did not destroy a race. I captured them and moved them onto a reservation. I followed my orders, of which I am very proud. I'm going to ask the question that no one has asked, and which is usually the first question an 8th grader will ask: how could you betray your friend? Because for an 8th grader, friendship is everything. To which I answered, friendship? I made many friends at West Point. We fought together in the Mexican-American War. And there is no bond stronger than a friendship that is forged on a battlefield. But then in the Civil War, my friends were across the field on the other side. I was fighting against my friends. Sorry, kids. Sometimes life forces you to make very difficult decisions.
Called ruthless compassion.
I'm going to end there. I have to tell you.
Actually, she has a question.
You can, one more question.
One more.
Do you have anything to say for yourself in this for good behavior during the 5 months that you were chasing Chief Joseph's band? Do you have any justification of good behavior that you extended toward him? Was it true that you just didn't catch him?
You're asking me to say, did I intentionally decide to disobey my orders? And the answer is, of course, never. But who knows? I will say that is a question that is still asked today. How is it that Joseph eluded him? And one of the ways to justify it is to just say the natives were just such amazing fighters, and they outwitted us. Because the opposite would be, I was too incompetent, or I chose not to go. But let me just ask you now, let's cut to the chase. We ask 8th graders now, you said he was a national hero. And now you know, we add one more here. Is he still a national hero? Turn and talk. Turn and talk to someone, tell them what you think.
I think stuff, it's kind of like way out. For his nation.
Okay, quick, because we're almost out of time. How many say yes, he is still a national hero? How many say no, he crossed the line? And the best thing I like about this is there is no right answer. As long as you can say, this is what I believe because, and cite historical evidence, then we must respect your opinion. But only then. Yes, sir.
One final question.
For me, not Howard. Howard.
For you.
Yeah.
And that is, when you did these groups in your classroom, was Joseph one of the groups that you set out?
No. It was 4 areas which set everyone up going, yeah, he's a hero. I mean, what a guy. And then I threw the wrench into it.
And when did you bring Joseph
At
in?
the very end, just like I did now. I literally, I mean, it took a little bit of arrangements because the secretary was a dear friend of mine. And by the way, if you're ever a teacher, befriend the secretary. She runs the school. Saved my ass a number of times, you know. We got this new principal, ran afoul of the secretary, and I just said, yeah, secretaries do everything. So I would time it, and I'd be watching the clock. She would be right outside the door, and then there'd be this ferocious knock on the door and say, Mr. Ellison, there is a really important visitor for you. And I'd be, what? What? And then I'd say, well, turn and talk. Is he still a national hero? I'm going to go see what this is. And I'd run out the door, and then she would, just as Greg did here, although that led to one really funny moment, I come back in, and the kids are all like, oh my God, you know, and everything. And this one kid in the back, I still remember, a little short kid, way too smart for his own good. Yeah. And he literally, very droll, very sardonic, sarcastic, he just looked at me, the thing calmed down, and he said, wrong arm, General.
Got rid of that kid.
Thank you. Wasn't that fabulous?
Yes.